Hey guys, just real quick before the video starts, I just want to say sorry for the long period of time between my last video and this video. A lot of things came up, mainly academics and getting sick for like a week, but I'm sorry for the delay between uploads. You know, I just couldn't really work on this video all that much, so I do apologize for that. What I won't apologize for, and I actually appreciate from you guys, is the support I got from the last. That is a horrible way to transition into saying this, but thank you guys for the support in the last video. I expect that video to get like 100, 200 views at most, right? Because I was like about average for my channel, I want to say. And right now, as of recording this, it's sitting at like just over 10k views, which is just insane, and my subscriber count skyrocketed from that. So I really do appreciate the support. I just want to say that right now. I appreciate that. Thank you guys. But with that out of the way, I'll just get on to the video now. I won't dawdle on this any longer. Half-Life is known for many things, whether that be its storyline, gameplay, sound design, or in today's subject, the music. The music of Half-Life is undeniably one of the most memorable parts of Half-Life. Some of my favorite moments from the series are moments with said music, whether it's the opening of the first game or the Strider battles in the sequel, or even the final stand in episode 2, the music just makes it so much better. Now, because of this, I decided that I would rank each one. Now, of course, to specify, in this video, I'll only be going over the tracks made by Kelly Bailey, who is the lead sound designer for the Half-Life games, primarily Half-Life, Half-Life 2, Episode 1, and Episode 2 of Half-Life 2. So that means no Half-Life Alyx, no Black Mesa, no Opposing Force, Blue Shift, etc. No fan games, no other games. But if this video does really well, then maybe I will actually go ahead and make videos on those. But here's the most important part of this ranking: how they'll be grouped and how they'll be ranked. And to start with the groups, because I think it's unfair to compare tracks like Bass String to something like LG Orbifold or Cavern Ambience. I'm playing all of them in the background individually so you can tell the difference. So I've decided to make 4 categories, and in the order I'll be talking about them, they are Shock, which is short 10 to 50 second tracks, mainly meant for quick stingers to invoke emotion or other feelings, usually just played at like key moments. Ambience, which usually plays somewhat silently, sometimes more prominently, in the background, once again to invoke said emotion. This time mainly to invoke the feeling or just the tone of the whole scene, and they actually tend to be the longest tracks out of all of them. Third is Action, which are intense beat tracks usually playing during major fights or other scenarios like that, and meant to drive up your adrenaline or just make you focus on the fact of what's going on. And finally are Story tracks, which are basically just tracks that either A, don't fit into the other categories, or B, meant to represent exactly what's going on, and like I said, don't fit into the either category, so it's like, it's not an intense action track, but it's not a subtle ambience track. You'll see what I mean when we get into the rankings, though. As for the scoring system, each thing will be ranked of will be out of 10 points, and the 4 categories will be ranked on is Usage, which is how the song is used gameplay-wise, so things like, does it line up with the events, or does it just feel slapped on? Second one is Story, which is pretty much just, does it fit the tone or the, mood of the scene? So like, you don't play a happy upbeat track in the middle of a somber moment, it's how fitting does it actually feel in the moment. Unique. I don't know why in the recording I don't know how to say unique. I'm sorry if I keep messing it up later. I don't know why I can't say it. It's pretty much just how much the track stands out from the rest, and that doesn't always just mean similar instrument usages or others, but just how memorable is it really. And the fourth one is how good it is, which is almost entirely personal opinion. All these other categories stuff are just all personal opinion, but with a theming. This one is just how good do I think the track is overall, really. That's just all this category is. So you do get to see my own personal opinion a lot in here. I was gonna initially have a 5th category, mainly have a nice 50 points total, or like limit, I guess. But I couldn't think of a 5th category, so we're just stuck with 40 points total. Oh, and for any ties, they'll be broken by personal choice again. And unused tracks or reused tracks will get a nice even 5 for the unique category, which means that for any tracks that have this rule applied, their utmost limit would be 35 points. But anyways, with all this out of the way, we can finally get to the start of all this ranking, because trust me, this is gonna take a while. Starting with shock tracks. In the last place, we have Scared Confused Short, playing of both Forget About Freeman and Lambda Core. This track honestly just provides nothing special and sounds like several other tracks, and it's actually hard for me to identify it in game, so it just gets 19 points. The lowest score out of any track, actually. 13th goes the Biozeminod Fragment. It's an unused track in Half-Life 2 that is just a weird sped up version of Alien Shock from Half-Life. So there's not much to say other than it's pretty forgettable. It only gets 22 points. 12th, we have Zen Relay. This track plays at the start of Dark Energy when you enter Breen's office. This is another track renamed from Half-Life, this time being Threatening Short. Nothing else to say, just 26 points. In 11th, we have another unused track, Headhumper. And honestly, listening to it feels like it should have stayed in-game. Although I can't think of any exact moment it would have fit, but I'll still give it 26 points. I'm just going to point out now, right now for a lot of lower rankings, I know it seems like I'm just kind of glossing over them, but truthfully speaking, a lot of the reason why a lot of these tracks are lower is just because there's not a lot to say about them, really. That's the only reason. Apprehensive is next in 10th place. This track plays a lot. Once in Unforeseen Consequences, once again in Office Complex, and twice in Apprehension. This track is pretty generic sounding, a lot like Scared Confused Short, but I think it's a little bit better. So I'm pretty sure it gets 27 points. Oh, also it plays in the build-up to the Antlion Guard spawning in Sand Traps in Half-Life 2, and also when Eli's pod is open in Entanglement. Just want to point that out. And I know that seems to contradict the rule I made about reused tracks in Half-Life 2 not being counted separately, but the shock tracks will be, because for some reason a lot of things like, later tracks you'll see like Bass String and stuff are actually reused in Half-Life 2, but they're not listed separately in the soundtrack or given a different name. So you gotta make weird rules and exceptions where you have to. Moving on to 9th is the aforementioned Bass String. I like this track. It's short, and it gets its job of being a shock track. It appears in Office Complex, Apprehension, and reappears at the start of Root Canal in Half-Life 2. And so I'd say overall, it just gets 29 points, which seems pretty high, I guess, but keep in mind that pretty much almost every song in this whole soundtrack is pretty good. So I think 29 is actually pretty bad, statistically wise. I mean, that's only like 75%, so I mean, it's not that great, is it? 8th place is Threatening Short, which first plays when you enter Zen for the first time, and then plays in the dark area and interloper right before the final boss. This track's pretty unique sounding, and honestly, I feel it should have been made a bit longer, but I still like it. 30 points. 7th is the only track from either of the episodes in the shock category, Darkness at Noon. I was initially going to put this in Ambience, but I changed my mind. Why? I don't really know. Overall, it doesn't really make a difference. I just kind of need to divvy them up wherever I can and when I can, a lot of these tracks. It plays during the Dark Vent section in the chapter Low Life in Half-Life 2 Episode 1. This track does sound pretty good, so I'll give it 31 points. In 6th place, we have Dark Piano Short. This plays in Questionable Ethics when you encounter your first alien grunt, and later on in Surface Tension when you enter the explosives room. I wish it got reused in Half-Life 2, or just used more, because I do think it sounds pretty good, but I'm gonna digress here. 34 points. Breaking to top 5, we have Alien Shock. This track is pretty much just the Gargantua's theme, playing in the opening scene of Power Up, and during the Gargantua chase at the end of Surface Tension. 2 out of 3 of the only appearances of Gargantuas in the game. And actually, as a matter of fact, the entire series, as I don't even believe they appear in Opposing Force or Blue Shift. The chaotic nature of this song really does work in its benefit during these moments, especially when you first encounter it in Power Up. So I'm gonna give it 34 points. 4th place is Hunter Down, playing only once in Half-Life 2 near the end of Follow Freeman, when taking down the last rider in the rooftop battle. The really eerie tone of this track makes it very memorable, so I'm gonna give it 35 points, and just to elaborate a little further, I just love this scene, because after this point again, the game becomes quite easy, as it's just the ending chapters, so it just feels like you just went through so much. In 3rd place, we have the highest ranking shock track from Half-Life, Sharp Fear Short. And the name explains itself, really. It appears only once in the first game, when you kill the Gargantua at the end of Power Up. And it plays twice in the sequel. First when Hunter Chopper is defeated at the end of Water Hazard, and later in Sand Traps when the Antlion Guardian spawns in. It sets a pretty good mood. What? It sets a pretty good mood whenever it plays, invoking a lot of horror in a player, as it's only about like a 7 or 8 second long track, and you really only hear it for like the first half of it when it plays, well, a sharp fear, pretty much. I don't really know how to describe it. My throat's dry. 35 points. And coming in second place for shock tracks is Requiem for Ravenholm. Hearing this play as Father Gregory just laughs maniacally into just a complete wall of fire as zombies ambush him at the end of literally one of the best chapters in the whole series, arguably the best, just makes this scene just so iconic. But following the criteria, it gets just 36 points. I would give it more if I could. And coming in first place for shock tracks, we have Slow Light. This track just sounds amazing, and it playing right after the gunship at New Little Odessa just matches the somber tone for all of the people just standing around after the battle, exhausted. Which I guess doesn't really make sense, because I'm the only one who actually did shit. Everyone else just kind of stood around screaming at me. So I don't think they deserve a break. I think they should attack more. I think they should have helped me. No, I had to do all the attacking myself. Lazy. This battle was one of the only things I actually remember from my first playthrough of Half-Life 2, as on my second playthrough, I realized that I forgot majority of things from the game, which actually was quite a nice experience, but overall, it still just gets 38 points, which is quite good, and I think this category is set to quite a good precedent going forward for all the other ones, especially considering how these are all just short, small little tracks. And so right now on screen, I'm going to be putting every shock track in order, scrolling past, just to remind you guys of all their rankings as we move on to the next category, which unfortunately will be the longest of each category, Ambience. And trust me, this is going to be a long one, as I believe there's about 36 tracks, I believe, in this category, so, and there's a lot more to say about them. So let's go in. Starting off Ambience, coming in last place, we have Negative Pressure. This track is renamed from Steam into Pipes. This renaming / reusing tracks will be very common, especially in this category going forward, so just get used to this, get used to me saying this, because I'm going to be saying it a lot. The track is played during this one part in Our Benefactors, and it's also used again in episode 1, during the elevator ride in Undue Alarm, although it's never labeled or mentioned in that OST. This track just offers nothing special from the original, and the original wasn't even that great either, so I'm giving it just 23 points. Next, in 35th place, we have Suppression Field. I'll be honest, this track just sucks. It plays as you return to the plaza area. I can barely hear this track during this part, and honestly it's quite forgettable. I didn't even know it existed, and I thought it was cut on my first playthrough, so 23 points. I would probably like to give it lower though. 34th place is Broken Symmetry. This track is okay. It plays near the end of Root Canal, and honestly, this track is just basic, and you could remove this track, and literally nothing would change. Nothing else to say. 24 points. 33rd is Singularity. This track plays when you enter the teleporter room in Entanglement. It's renamed from Traveling Through Limbo, and once again, I can barely notice this track in-game, but this time, I still feel it fits the scene somewhat. And no music would have definitely been worse, so I'm still going to give it 24 points to be nice. 32nd is the aforementioned Traveling Through Limbo. This track plays at the end of Half-Life when you first enter Annihilation's chamber and fight him. I'm not particularly fond of this song. It fits the tone very well. As for Gordon Freeman's perspective, this moment would be very eerie and unsettling. I mean, you just, not only are you already on like an alien universe pretty much, you just enter the chamber which has a massive telekinetic space baby that's floating. I'd be shitting my pants too. But we're just gonna give it 25 points. Moving onward to 31st place, we have Black Mesa Inbound, renamed from Vague Voices, and plays when going outside and receiving the gravity gun in Black Mesa East. This track just feels kind of slapped on here. Good to see a track appear here, but at the same time, the name makes me feel this should have played when approaching Black Mesa East. So it gets 25 points. Very weird. I'll talk more about that later. In 30th place, we have Dimensionless Deepness. This plays when entering the cave at the end of the chapter Zen. This track is odd. It's very moist sounding. That's what I wrote in my notes. Moist sounding. And honestly, I think you can tell by listening to it right now. which, I mean, we are in a cave with weird bloody water. I don't know. Sounds like Zen. Sounds very moist. 25 points. Not a great track, though. 29th place is Echoes of Resonance Cascade, renamed from Space Ocean. And once again, rename corresponds to its original use in game. This track appears twice in Half-Life 2. First time in Anti-Citizen 1 when fighting a bunch of zombies in the sewage area, and later in Our Benefactors when going overhead in a pod in the Citadel. And I just want to point out this scene in particular. I'm going to be going on a bit of a tangent here. I'll put a timestamp on the screen if you don't want to hear any of this and just want to get back to the ranking. But I love this scene. It's almost like poetic. This is the track that played when Gordon Freeman accidentally caused the Resonance Cascade near the start of the first game, back in Black Mesa, which indirectly caused the Combine's arrival. So this playing here symbolizes just how one minor thing caused all this to happen as Gordon is on his way to Breen's office, just almost completing a cycle in a way, as he's going overhead, just watching all of the things that he has indirectly caused himself. So to play the exact same track here that played when all of this went down, it's just beautiful. And honestly, I love it. Sorry for getting off topic there, but I just love this track so much. So I know it sounds weird to only give it 26 points, but you know, we can only give it so many points if in other categories it's just not that great. You know what I mean? Calabi Yao model? Clibio model is next in 28th place. This track plays at the Resistance camp, where you receive the theropods and sand traps. This track's alright, nothing much to say, especially in comparison to the last track. It's kind of quiet, kind of ambient. I guess that fits the theme. It's an ambient track. I know it sounds stupid, but like it's just really nothing. It's a whole lot of nothing. 26 points. In 27th is the lowest ranking episodic track in this category, Combine Advisory. This track plays not too long after you re-enter the Citadel in episode 1, when the room where an advisor pod appears, and fun fact, based on little hints in the scene, it's believed that this advisor is Dr. Breen himself, or at least a copy of him having transferred to the host body. Completely unconfirmed, but it's pretty cool anyways to believe that theory. Sorry, I just realized in my script I didn't write points for this one. So you're just gonna have to look on screen. I don't know how many I gave it. I think I gave it 26 points though, if I remember correctly. Speaking of 26, in 26th place is Escape Array. Renamed from Electric Guitar Ambience from the original Half-Life. This is the track that plays when approaching Black Mesa East. And this is the track that I think should have replaced Black Mesa Inbound. Because I feel like just the tone of both tracks and literally the naming, I feel like it should have just been completely swapped around. And I think if they were swapped on, both these tracks would have actually gone a much higher ranking, or at least slightly higher ranking. So I think that was definitely a missed opportunity there, especially if the naming. It almost feels intentional. It's like they're trying to piss me off. 26 points though. In 25th place, God, we're barely through this script. I'm not even a third through my script right now. In 25th place is Dirac Shore. Once again, a rename. This time for Dimensionless Deepness. It plays when entering the flooded basement in Entanglement. So honestly, having the moist sounding audio here makes just a lot more sense, considering we're in a really flooded basement. So I'll give it a solid 26 points. I think that's pretty fitting. In 24th is Hurricane Strings. This track plays when you enter the freezer room in Office Complex. I feel given the circumstances, this track should have been focused more on sounding cold or chilly than just a simple ambience. So I think it just gets 26 points. I think there's a lot of missed opportunities here. 23rd place is Probably Not a Problem. This track first plays during your first encounter with headcrabs and zombies at the end of Root Canal, and then later during the sniper section to follow Freeman when entering headcrab-infested building. So it seems to be a bit of a headcrab/zombie theme in a way. But not else much to say. It's pretty decent overall. 27 points. Not bad. 22nd place is Ein Kleiner Elevator Music. This track plays in episode 1 during the Roller Mines section. It's honestly pretty fitting for the Citadel. It definitely feels very Citadel theme. So I'm just gonna give it 27 points. Not much else to say, other than the fact that the name makes absolutely no sense given the context. At least in my opinion. I'll let you guys argue that in the comments, but... In 21st is another episode 1 track, Decay Mode. It plays when you first enter the dark elevator room in Low Life. I don't think there's much to say here, although this scene is a good representation of how Half-Life uses ambience much to its benefit. And of course, as you can see the scene in the background, I'll just let it speak for itself, as I feel like explaining why something's really good defeats the whole point of it. So I'll let you guys figure it out on your own, or play the game for yourself. 27 points, also. In 20th, we have our resurrected teleport. This plays in a red letter day when Dr. Kleiner opens the wall revealing the teleporter he's built. I do enjoy the sounds used in this track. It definitely helps elevate the scene. It just really feels very like, you know, sci-fi, especially given the moment. You know, you're messing with a teleporting machine, all that kind of stuff. I'd say 28 points. In 19th place is 0 Point Energy Field. Yet another rename, now being renamed from Cavern Ambience. This track appears when entering this part of the sewers in Root Canal. Unfortunately, once again, nothing much to say about this one. So just 28 points. I really wish I could say more for a lot of these, but sometimes you just can't really say that much. However, through ambience tracks now, in 18th place, we have Neutrino Trap. Neutrino Trap, yeah. Renamed from Hurricane Strings. It appears in the chapter Our Benefactors, right as you exit the pipe at the beginning, and see just a massive pit beneath the Citadel. I don't know why they needed all this underneath the Citadel, but interesting. Pretty eerie moment, I'd say, at least, even if there's not much going on here. So I'd say 28 points is pretty fitting. 17th is Cavern Ambience. This track plays during the lift ride in Unforeseen Consequences and the beginning of Lambda Core, which is also just the lift ride. I don't really know what these moving platforms are called. I'm just calling them lifts because I'm pretty sure that's what they're called. I do somewhat like this track, but once again, not much to say, other than it's just a decent overall. Although I do really hate the head crab lift in Unforeseen Consequences. That moment always pisses me off. Like, there's just so many head crabs and they take away so much health, because if they just hit you once, they take away, like, God. Just ignore me. 28 points, God. In 16th is the lowest episode 2 track in Ambience, Sheulafoy. This track plays in the chapter Riding Shotgun when entering the barn with an advisor in it. This track definitely helps build up the suspense towards this moment pretty well, especially considering how you almost die here, and it is quite eerie, you know, just how your vision goes all weird a bit before, and, you know, you just enter a barn that has a lot going on, and I don't know what I'm saying half the time, I'll be honest. I'm going off a script here, but, like, I don't know what I'm doing when writing the script, so what's the difference between going off script and going on script? 28 points, by the way. In 15th, we have Triple Entanglement. It plays near the end of Anti-Citizen 1, and the odd thing about this track is that it's like a weird remix version of Sirens in the Distance, but now the sirens are extremely distant, so I guess it's really fitting of the name now, and just not nearly as good as the original. It's a really weird version of the track, and I'm pretty sure it's shorter. I don't get its point. It just sounds weird. I'm not a big fan of it, especially because I'm a much bigger fan of the original. So just 28 points again. In 14th place is Shadows Fore and Aft. It plays during the G-Men's iconic opening speech at the start of Half-Life 2, and it really does sound a lot like Lab Practicum. We'll come back to that one. But a lot shorter, and the noises seem to be like a bit sharper and more prominent and a bit less ambient. But it's still ambient, of course. I do like it. It's a pretty good track, but it still only gets 28 points. In 13th place goes Steam in the Pipes, appearing just once in Half-Life when you enter the teleportation chamber in Lambda Core. This track is fitting, but overall it's just alright, so I'm just gonna give it 28 points. I don't know what to say, there's not much going on in the moment that it plays, and there's not much to say about the track. I mean, the version used in Half-Life 2 literally came last in this category, so you can tell that I don't really like this track all that much. Space Ocean is in 12. This track plays in the aftermath of the Resonance Cascade at the start of Unforeseen Consequences. This track is almost perfectly capturing the tone and that feeling of what the hell just happened, and just seeing the sudden despair and death of the scene. And it's easily one of the most iconic scenes in the whole series. And as a result, it's probably one of the most iconic tracks. The only problem though is that it does seem to really loop for a long time, which gets really annoying. Like, as soon as the track ends, it just keeps looping and looping, which would be okay if it wasn't for the fact that it had that sharp beat at the beginning of the track, just keep looping as well at the beginning of it. That also gets pretty annoying. But it gets 28 points. And, okay, I'm sorry, I know you guys have probably noticed this at this point, A lot of 28-point ones, but I swear to God, this is the last one of 28 points in it. At least for ambience tracks, of course. In 11th, we have Electric Guitar Ambience. This plays when entering the minefield with snipers during surface tension. Having a very droning sounding noise going on as this track plays really helps it, especially since you are in the middle of a desert in the midday, so of course it's going to be hot. It's almost like kind of like the crickets chirping in the background. I like it, sounds pretty good, but still just 29 points, because of course ambience tracks don't sound all that great on their own. Starting off in our top 10, we have Extinction Event Horizon. Plays at the start of Half-Life 2 Episode 2, when you're in the train wreck. It's a good opening track, but there's not much else to say about it. I think it sounds pretty good. So, it's the first track in ambience to get 30 points, and I think that's pretty deserved. In 9th place, we have Vague Voices. This is the first track ever heard in the entire series, playing and looping throughout the entire opening tram ride. Hearing almost like the ambiguity of this song, I want to say, just sounds really good when going through Black Mesa, because it really makes you wonder, like, what the hell is going on in here? Because one second you're going for, like, dormitories and stuff, next second you're seeing rockets being built, and next second you see weird electric field machines just right next to you. So, you know, it's just kind of like, what the hell are they doing here? So I think it sounds pretty good, and it's a bit of an allure to what's to come in the future, so I think it gets 31 points. And 8th is Lab Practicum. First playing in Highway 17 when going underneath the bridge, at least at this one specific part, and later at the end of Entanglement when Gordon and Alex teleport back to Kleiner's lab. This track is just really nice to listen to, and once again I do believe is quite an iconic track from this series, and it's just a great example of what an ambience track should be. Simple, unique, memorable. That is what ambience should be in Half-Life. It invokes something while still being simple and still just being good. Being a good damn track. So 32 points. 7th place is the highest episode 1 track in this category, with that being Infraradiant. This track plays when entering the Dark Energy Core in the chapter Direct Intervention. This track really feels like it's from Portal, but this game came out much earlier. No, it didn't. Why did I write that? It came out like a year before Portal came out. But that's just something interesting I noticed about it. It almost seems like a bit of a prelude to Portal's soundtrack. I don't know who made that soundtrack though, so I don't know if that's just a coincidence or what. But it gets 33 points. 6th place is Inhuman Frequency. This track plays during the G-Man speech in Half-Life 2 Episode 2, and this moment is just probably my second favorite G-Man speech. First, obviously, being a speech at the end of Half-Life 2. I think that one's better, but this scene is just easily G-Man's most threatening-like scene. Like, his demeanor and tone here is just amazing, and just seeing him just be, like, only, like, half visible most of the time, and, like, the way he moves around, like, it's just a very good scene, and just hearing this track subtly in the background just really helps, like, cement in that fact. So, I'd say 33 points. Could be better, but still amazing. Going into the top 5, we have Particle Ghost. This plays as you leave the Ravenholm mines and see daylight once again. I love this moment, as you run through the train tracks fighting zombies and encounter Combine soldiers for the first time. And not just the regular CPs again. Overall, just great track, great scene. I love this track. 33 points. I couldn't tell if that was a 5. I have horrible handwriting. And 4th is Nectarium. This plays in episode 2 during the chapter of This Vortal Coil, when our Vortigaunt friend is collecting the Vortessence. This track is just very alien sounding, which is perfect considering the area and the situation that we're in. So I think, once again, very fitting, which I think for pretty much any Half-Life track is the most important thing. Like, does it actually fit what the hell is going on here? Because I feel like that's something that Half-Life gets very well done throughout all of its soundtracks in all of the games. So I'm giving it 34 points. 3rd place goes to Sirens in the Distance. This track plays at the start of On a Rail, as you start going through the flooded tracks, and extremely unpopular opinion here, but On a Rail is one of the best chapters in Half-Life. I said it. Not even just a decent chapter. I know Val would get me in a lot of trouble with the community enemies, but no, I think it's one of the best chapters. I don't care what any of you say. I love this chapter. And you know what? It's personal opinion. This is personal opinion, so I'm putting a bit of bias here. I'm giving it 35 points. And listen, I know you guys are gonna say, ooh, but you have to drive around the train like the whole track. First of all, no you don't. I still do, but you literally can just abandon it. Sure, it's more annoying, but that's because you're going against the whole, like, level's objective. And second of all, I don't get people's problem with it. Like, sure, is it slightly slow and tedious at times? Yeah, but that's like the whole game. That is like the entire game. The entire game is structured like that. And if you say that on a rail's bad because you have to drive around in a vehicle, okay, so is Water Hazard a bad chapter? I know a lot of people say it's bad, but what about Highway 17? Highway 17 is a good chapter. So, hey, listen, I'm just saying, you want to say it's a bad chapter? Just tell me all the other vehicle chapters are bad as well, and then we'll talk. I don't know if I said this, 35 points. I can't remember if I said that. Going in second place is Nova Prospect. This track plays into chapter, you guessed it, Nova Prospect. Specifically right as the chapter begins as you first enter the prison. The very eerie tone of this track matches what at this point in the game we've heard about this place, and is a good introduction as for what Gordon's emotions would be, as we've only heard bad things and have bad things ascribed about Nova Prospect, so entering it for the first time would be quite unnerving. But I'm giving it 36 points regardless. And coming in first place for Ambience, we have what I think is the best ambient track in just every regard, is Nepal Monastery. This I believe is actually the only ambience track to not be reused in Half-Life 2, as I'm pretty sure every other single track from Half-Life 1 is reused except for this one, so it's kind of weird that they didn't choose to reuse this one. Can't think of a moment they would, but I think they should have, considering just how good of a track this is, you know. It plays at the beginning of Blast Pit, which is probably my favorite chapter in the whole series. I don't know why, I just love Blast Pit so much. And just entering, you know, the Blast Pit itself for the first time, but not having seen the tentacles yet, and just having a scientist tell you to kill the thing, it's just really ambient, because you're like, what the hell is all that banging? What's going on in there? And just hearing this very almost like eerie and empty sounding track at this moment just helps out so much with this scene, and I love it just so much. I think it's a beautiful scene, and once again, one of my favorite chapters, one of my favorite scenes from the whole game. Actually, as a matter of fact, the whole series, really. So, you know what? 38 points. Oh, sorry, I also forgot to mention, it's also reused in Surface Tension, but only if you go to where the tentacle spawns, like in a specific part in the minefield. I got the track to play here, but I could not get the tentacle to spawn. I don't know if I have to walk over a specific trigger, but I figured most people would just completely forget or not even know that it plays here. So just figured I'd mention that before someone called me out on it, because I know someone will call me out on it. I had many people call me out for minor inaccuracies on my last video, so I've learned from my lessons. Nice one. You're very literate. That was a lot, but don't worry, the categories are getting smaller from here on out, so let's just get into our next category, that of which being action. There's a total of 22 action tracks, half as many as the ambient tracks, so it should go by much quicker. And considering how the tracks are just much better, I think this will be a much more enjoyable section. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people just skip to this section of the video, in which case, I know what you did. I called you out right now. So, just saying. Coming in 22nd in last place is Hard Fought. This plays twice throughout the chapter Anti-Citizen 1. This track just sounds odd, kinda hurts my ears, does its job, but like, it's just okay. It's just okay. I don't really like it that much. But it still gets 28 points, though. And 21st is Lambda Core. This track's renamed from Diabolical Adrenaline Guitar, which is kinda weird because this track never played in Lambda Core in the original. Considering how, for the most part, accurate a lot of the chapter renames are, it's kind of weird for this one to be named that, but sure, whatever. In Half-Life 2, though, it plays during the helicopter chase in Water Hazard. It's a good scene, I do like it. The track's of course good, but because it's reused and just a lot of it doesn't make sense, I'm just going to be giving it 30 points. 20th place is the Innsbruck Experiment, or Innsbruck? Yeah, Innsbruck Experiment. This track plays during the CP ambush in Root Canal, and later at the start of Anti-Citizen 1. This track's pretty okay, it's short, but nothing really special. I do still somewhat like it though, so I'm still gonna give it 31 points. I think it's pretty alright. 19th is Adrenaline Horde. This track plays at the surface fight with the HECU at the end of We've Got Hostiles. Personally, I think it's kind of sad this track's not reused in Half-Life 2. Mainly because, well, they reused so many other tracks, so to see a track like this that I think is still pretty good, at least, not being reused actually just does kind of suck. I would have loved to have reheard it again. So, 31 points still. 18th place goes to Sector Sweep, which plays during a Combine ambush in the chapter Riding Shotgun in Episode 2. This track, I feel, really shows how the Episode 2 soundtracks just are really unique from the rest of like the game's soundtracks, but still sound like they're from Half-Life, and just still, of course, a really good track. I also have a bit of bias here because this is the track that I used for the intro to my Node video, which you should totally go check out after this video. I know it was made back in September, and my editing was less good back then, but please just go watch that video. I love that video. It's one of my personal favorites. Oh, also 31 points. Almost forgot that. The 17th is Guard Down from Episode 1. This plays when fighting the Combine in the streets of City 17 during Urban Flight. There isn't at all much to say here about it. It's a pretty good track though, overall. Although I feel like if they just hadn't included this track here, no one would be complaining or saying there should be a track here. So it's just like once again, like a whole lot of nothing really. I don't think it should have been here. But 32 points still, I like it. Don't get me wrong. 16th place is Jungle Drums. And this is the only track in the chapter Gonarch Slayer. This plays at the start of the chapter when the Gonarch reveals herself. Honestly, I love this chapter. It's short, and I really wish it could have been expanded a lot more. But honestly, I still love it, and the chaotic nature of this track just, I think, helps elevate the scene a lot. I mean, okay, you just walked into an area, or not walked in, you teleported into an area with a massive crab creature with a massive testicle that keeps coming out like baby head crabs, the enemy you've seen the whole game. I'd be pretty confused as shit as well, you know? And I know a lot of people may say this isn't exactly like a action track, but it's kind of like a quick beat, and considering how it is like a boss, like a fight scene, I'm gonna consider it an action track. So, regardless, it gets 32 points. In 15th place, we have Disrupted Original. This track plays in low life as you fight a bunch of zombies and others and aliens into pitch black. In my notes, I have written, opening note, loud, ouchie ouch, ear hurt, frowny face emoji. I don't think I need more explanation. You guys heard it when I'm playing the track in the background. It's a really weird opening note. Other than that, I do like the track though. It's got a good beat to it, sounds pretty good. 32 points. I just wish it wasn't an opening note. In 14th place is a controversially low one, but CP Violation. This plays twice throughout Root Canal. Now, don't get me wrong, this is a good track. I'm just not a big a fan of it as most other people are. Don't get me wrong, it's good. It's iconic, but I just don't think it's all that great. I'm sorry, especially like in-game. I'm sorry, I just don't like it all that much. But at this point, I have pissed off 99% of the Half-Life community, so like, does it really matter? I mean, I literally just said On a Rails one of the best chapters, and in my last video, I said Half-Life 2 Deathmatch was a pretty bad game, which apparently is really a taboo thing to say. I didn't know that. So, not really much else to lose, is there? Oh, also 32 points. I keep forgetting to say the points. 13th place is Going to Hunting Party. This track plays in Riding Shotgun when Gordon and Alex are ambushed by some Combine hunters. This is just a really nice track overall, so it's just getting 32 points. And I do want to point out now that, because I really should find more things to talk about for these sections, I love the Combine hunters. They're just really fun enemies to fight because they're tanky, they have a unique like shooting mechanic, but like they're not annoying tanky, you know? Like, as I feel like even the alien grunts in Half-Life 1 can be annoying at times, as much as I do love to fight them as enemies. But I do like the Common Hunters a lot. I think they mimic a lot of what the aliens grunts were. Of course, that might just be a personal opinion, but I think you guys can get what I'm saying here. In 12th place is Penultimatum. This plays at the end of Exit 17 when a Strider ambushes you as you're opening the gate. This part of the game does get slightly annoying, honestly, and especially during my playthrough for the background footage of this video, I had a really tough time fighting him. I don't like the save scum, but I did have to do it at a couple points because it's like, you get exposed for like 1 second and the Strider just destroys you. So, I know they do give you cover, but like, it doesn't change much other than the fact that I am an idiot, and I would like this game to be a bit more idiot-proof. But regardless of all that, it's still a pretty good track, so I'm gonna give it 33 points. I like it. Halfway through now, in 11th place, we have Self-Destruction. In episode 1, this plays when fighting off a massive horde of zombies at the end of Low Life when calling down the elevator. I'm also now realizing how many zombie fights in episode 1 there is. Like, there's a lot. I think I've mentioned at least like 5 or something at this point, let alone the rest of the series. I know headcrabs, the headcrab zombies are iconic, but like, my god, they appear a lot. Also, 33 points. In 10th place is Hard Technology Rock. This track plays at the end of Forget About Freeman in the underground warehouse area, or whatever you would call this. Garage, I guess? I don't really know what to call it. This moment's an already amazing fight scene as you fight, you know, a multitude of enemies. HECU, alien grunts, Vortigons, and the only appearance of the Zen Cannon. I don't know why this enemy or weapon thing only ever appeared once in like the entire series. It is in this one part. And honestly, I'm a big fan of like rock and like rock themed music, so just hearing, you know, guitar for a lot of these tracks just sounds really good, especially with just how intense it is. So honestly, I really like it. I'm gonna give it 33 points. In 9th place, we have Something Secret Sears Us. This track plays in sand traps as Combine soldiers flood in from dropships. It's a renamed version of Nuclear Mission Jam, which I'm gonna clarify right now is not in this category, not in action, but it's in story tracks, and I'll explain that when we get to that track next, in next category, so you'll see why. And as I know they're exact same track, but you'll see why I've listed them differently. But back to this one. The way the build up and the proper start of this track lines up with like the comic soldiers actually landing just sounds so good. And honestly, I love this fight scene. It's always been one of my favorite moments from the whole series. I know I've said that a few times already, but like, that's why I said plural favorites. It's not like what my favorite, and I keep changing it. It's like I have like a million favorite scenes. This is just one of them. There's a lot I just kind of wrote to ramble on about in my script, but I'm just gonna save you guys from all that. So this track gets 34 points. Let's move on to next track, which is in 8th place, and it's Diabolical Adrenaline Guitar. This track plays with your first real encounter with the HECU and We've Got Hostiles, and it plays later on with the first tank HECU encounter, or at least I believe it's the first encounter, in Service Tension. This track is pretty synonymous with Half-Life at this point, being easily one of the most iconic tracks, and it makes sense. It's good, it sounds really good, it represents a lot of tone, especially because it plays both during HCU fights, where there's a lot of gunfire going on and explosions. I think it's really good and fitting, and it's actually kind of funny how iconic it is, because there was actually an alpha version made for it. If you like, you can find it online, which actually sounds a lot different, because that version's like sounds like a lot more tactical and stuff, whereas this one's like a lot more intense. So I guess at some point there was that change made for it. I think both tracks, the alpha and this one, would have fit. It gets 35 points. 7th place is Cowan. Cowan. This track plays during the rooftop gunship battle in Fall of Freeman, and honestly this track just really stands out to me a lot, from the beat being really distinct, and I'm 99% sure this is the only like official soundtrack in the Half-Life series that have some form of vocals, like some form of like actual human speech. That at the start they're saying like, I think it's like run is what they're saying at the start of the track. It's a bit odd, but honestly, I'm not complaining, especially if I do ever make this video, like this style of video for the Black Mesa soundtrack, you'll see why I love vocals and soundtracks, so I'm not complaining. It's a pretty good track, love the scene, love the moment. I'm gonna give it 37 points, and really just does leave me wishing more tracks had vocals in them. In 6th place, we have Apprehension and Evasion. And halfway through, this plays at the end chase of a Red Letter Day, and once again in Sand Traps when you leave the cave and start your attack on Nova Prospect with antlines following you. I love this moment in particular so much, the one for the antlines. The Ferrobots are just so underutilized in Half-Life 2. You only get to ever use them in like 2 chapters, and like that's it for like the entire rest of the game. Never reappear for the episodes, even though antlines are featured prominently throughout them. It really is a shame, so getting to have so much fun with them here is just amazing. I love it so much. And just getting to mow down all the soldiers without even having to pick up like a gun to shoot any of them. You just have to throw weird bug bait, you know, and all the antlines chase after all the soldiers. It's just so fun to mess around with. So I'm giving it 37 points. And yeah, we still got 5 more tracks after this, so you can only imagine how good it gets out from here. In 5th place, we have What Kind of Hospital Is This? which is a handful of a name, I must say, which is kind of fitting as you're fighting a handful amount of zombies and a lot of Combine as well in a hospital. It plays in episode 1 when you're, well, fighting a bunch of Combine and zombies in a hospital. I've really got to plan out these scripts better. And I think it's just a really good track on top of what's probably like the only like actual enjoyable moment in episode 1. Because let's be honest, most of episode 1 is just walking simulator or puzzle simulator. So I'm not complaining about having an actual good track alongside an actual good scene, you know, it's pretty good. I love it. It gets 38 points. In 4th place we have LG Orbifold. It plays in Follow Freeman as you enter the block where you have a massive battle of soldiers and striders. This battle just screams that it's just one more big push against the Combine, which it kinda is in the game. The building is just in disrepair and keeps getting more destroyed and decaying more as it's attacked more and more by the striders and soldiers. And just this track having a super upbeat and long tone to it just sounds super great, and I'm gonna have to find things to talk about here because it takes so long for the track to actually kick into action, which is fair because the track's like 3.5 minutes, or like it's a pretty long track, which makes sense because, well, it's a long fight, it's a long battle. The track usually, like on average, only actually ends when like you're just about near the top, like at like what I consider the safe zone, which is like just like this little section in the middle that has like, you know, some crates with like ammo and health, and there's like a couple like med kits and like a shield charger at the side. So just honestly, I love this because you go up and down throughout the street, throughout underneath the building, throughout in the building, just fighting tons and tons of Combine. It's just a really fun scene. Even if I die or lose pretty much almost all my health every single time, I love this scene, and I think that proves just how good of a series Half-Life is. The fact that you can be in the most bullshit of circumstances and dying constantly, but still enjoy the game. That is hard to pull off. Most games, the game's just too fun, but never challenging or anything, which is sometimes kind of sad because people like to be challenged, right? Or it's just infuriating and it's not fun, which is unfortunately really common. So I'm giving this track 38 points. I would love to give it higher, but because of our ranking system, can't really do that. And I'm hoping I've yapped enough that we've matched the timestamp for when the track is actually kicked into action. If not, I'm just gonna have to jump ahead to it in the background. And I'm sorry for wasting your time here, people. Going on to 3rd place though, we have Last Legs, which plays into chapter Our Mutual Fiend, shortly after being informed the Combine were sending in a new wave of Striders. This track sounds like just like an epic, you know, like a classic medieval tale. You know, just like the intense beat, the intense theme, and the fact that it's like another last big push against Combine. And honestly, I know I do save scum a lot during this part, but it's because I have shit aim. I've already said this, that I suck at the game. But honestly, just still, being able to shoot Magnuson devices and just shoot them out of your pistol and stuff, just destroying them one hit, wadding over like Combine Hunters, which I'm so glad they made those one hit being one over, because if they didn't, I'd actually be so sad. I just love this whole section, even if it gets tedious and it is really difficult at times. I honestly love just this whole fight scene. It's just so fun to do, all of it. I love it. Okay, I'll be honest, I've been hyper-obsessing over Half-Life way too much. Like, I only discovered this series, like, a bit over a year ago. And it's, like, fully taken over my life. It's a bit of a problem. Oh, and coming in 2nd place, by the way, is You're Not Supposed to Be Here. Playing just after you receive a machine gun that's mounted to your airboat. And before anyone says anything, because I know they will, I know in the files and stuff, it's called the Mud Skipper. Once again, like I said, I do my research now. I'm calling you guys out before you call me out. So, take that. And honestly, just coming out of tunnel and immediately shooting out, like, the Hunter Chopper, yeah, and then, like, the dogs are called Hunters. That's really confusing naming. Am I calling the wrong name? If I've been calling the wrong name, I'm so sorry. But just shooting at the chopper as coming out of the tunnel and seeing it kind of flee away and getting to shoot at so many more things, like, you know, soldiers and platforms and, of course, the chopper itself throughout this section is just so fun because this whole time you've been running away from it, but now it's your turn to fight it. And just, the gun is so powerful. Like, it's just such a powerful weapon, so just being able to decimate everything is just so fun. It is so fun. And I know this isn't like proper Half-Life 2, but like there's a VR mod for Half-Life 2 that I've played, and this section is really fun in that because the way you aim the gun in it, It's actually on Steam, the mod for it, so if you have a VR headset and Half-Life 2, I actually would recommend trying it out. I think it's worth your time. At least in my opinion, it is. And honestly, this scene in particular makes me really wonder if people don't like Water Hazard. Yeah, is it sluggish or slow at times, and the beginning can be quite annoying running from the helicopter? Yeah, but isn't this moment just so satisfying and really just kind of pay off for all that? Especially, yeah, just every moment even after the song plays, just with the, like, the machine gun. It's just so satisfying. I don't get people's problem with this chapter. 39 points. And coming in first place is, if you know your tracks well in this game, you know what it is. Vortal Combat. This track plays in the chapter Dis Vortal Coil in episode 2. And the track starts playing as antlines flood in from just every tunnel, and you're just swarmed. But now you have Vortigons, like, coming in to help you and just shooting at them as well. And it's just such a fun fight. Like, normally I don't really like fighting a crap ton of, like, Zen creatures, like, at once in any of the games. But honestly, this is the one moment where I just love it. Like, just, because especially because you have infinite ammo for your shotgun and SMG, you can just shoot at pretty much whatever you want with, like, whatever you want. And just shooting at so many antlines, just hordes and hordes of them. Especially while it's being able to place down, like, copper mines and everything. It's just so fun, and it's just such a good track. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, it's just such a good track. Like, it just sounds so good. Like, so intense. Like, it's hard to describe, but, like, if you've ever played this scene in episode 2, which I recommend you go play all of the Half-Life games regardless anyways, but if you haven't, yeah, go do that. But if you have, like, I think you just know what I mean by, like, it's just such a good track. It's such a good moment. It's beautiful. I love it so much. And you know what? For the first time in this ranking, and any of these rankings, I don't know if we'll do more of these, and actually for the only time in this video, I'll tell you right now, I'm giving a full and complete 40 out of 40 score. Because honestly, I believe it deserves a 40 out of 40. I just think it's that good. I love this. I just love it so much. It's every playthrough, I always look forward to this moment. And the fact that it plays so early on in the game, like, it only plays on, like, the second chapter. It's just so amazing. I love it. But now we've completed 3 out of 4 categories, and majority of the tracks as well. So we just now have to do one more of them. This time being story tracks. And believe me, these tracks, for the most part, are quite good. Because any tracks that you can think of right now that haven't been mentioned yet will be mentioned here. For story tracks, there's 21 of them in total. And coming in last place is the one that I mentioned before that I would have to explain. And that is Nuclear Mission Jam. Now, I know what you're thinking. And yes, it's a good track, but there's a major problem with it in Half-Life. It feels out of place. Because it feels like an action track, and Half-Life 2 proves that, but it plays when you pick up the Tau Cannon, which is nice and all, but you do have to pick up the Tau Cannon first to even get into any combat with, like, HECU or the aliens, which I guess is fine, but it's like, I don't know. It just feels kind of odd to me throughout a lot of this, and I do like the idea of a track playing when you first pick up the Tau Cannon, but I think Black Mesa, how they did it with Questionable Ethics 2, just works so much better, like, it playing, because it's a more subtle track, but, like, you don't even have to fight anything, you just pick it up, and you're just kind of like, hell yeah, I got a sci-fi gun with me now. I just think they could have done a much better job, but, and I want to mention the fact that, and I actually wrote this in my script, unless you're slow as shit, this song will continue to play even once you've gone down to where the scientists are for the most part. Like, the track lists barely line up. It does not line up, like, at all. It's always off. It only lines up with you picking up the Tau Cannon, but even then, like, the burst in action with it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So, it's just, God, I just need to move on. Before I get to this point, so, for some reason, Half-Life Source, and I will bring up Half-Life Source again later, this track actually plays at the beginning of Apprehension. And honestly, it actually fits a lot better for this moment in Apprehension, I'm not gonna lie. The only problem is that I actually don't know if it's meant to play in Apprehension, so I'm not gonna count it, and I didn't even notice until I had already made the rankings when I played through the Half-Life Source. So, if anyone wants to explain why it plays there in Half-Life Source but not in the original, and I tested, I'm pretty sure it does still play in Questionable Ethics when you pick up the Tau Cannon. So, I don't know what's going on there. I'm not a game designer, I'm not a game developer, I don't understand these things. So, track gets 27 points. Let's move on. 20th place is Hazardous Environments. This track is renamed from the Valve theme. Or, I think it's at least called the Valve theme in the original game. But either way, it plays when you put on the HEV suit, and it's the Valve theme, as I kind of just mentioned. It's the theme that, Valve made their theme. I don't know how to say it. I don't know how to put it. If you boot up a Valve game, it's what you hear. It's what I'm trying to say. And it plays when you put on the HEV suit in Red Letter Day. I think I cut myself off there. And after the opening sound, it just gets really quiet and you barely hear it. And it wasn't until one of my later playthroughs that I even actually noticed that it was playing at this point. Like, I just completely forgot or even didn't even understand it was playing at this point. So, it does play the full track, but I wasn't even aware of that. So, I'm gonna give it just 29 points. In 19th place, we have Miscount Detected. This is an actual cut track from Half-Life 2. Although, I swear I heard this in-game on my first playthrough of Half-Life 2 during the apartment block raid in Point Insertion. And I swear I heard it, okay? Like, I swear. And in case anyone knows anything about this track ever actually at any point playing, I would have played it during the spring of 2022. This Steam version, not like a disc version or anything, it was the Steam release. Actually, it might have been February 2022. So, if anyone knows, anything about the track actually playing at that point, if I'm just insane or something, yeah, just let me know. I don't know. I swear it played. I've checked playthroughs on YouTube and I've never heard of any of them, so I actually have no clue what's going on there. It's a pretty alright track though, so I'm just gonna give it 29 points. In 18th place is No One Rides for Free. This track plays in the chapter Riding Shotgun as you drive off with all your car repairs. There's nothing much really to say about this track. I think it's a good, nice, simple track for the moment. I think having a track here definitely does help, even if it doesn't really help in the sense of, like, it doesn't meant to represent anything. It's just a nice little, simple track playing in the background as you drive off and throw out a bunch of sewage water that's radioactive and hitting zombies. And just in a whole waste yard, pretty much. 30 points, though. I do still like it, I'd say. 17th place is Tracking Device. This track is reused from Credits Closing theme, which we'll get to later, but now it's actually remixed, and doesn't sound as good, but hey, I appreciate them putting in the effort to actually change it from the original. It plays at the second half of the credits, after another track, which we'll talk about later, and at the end of Half-Life 2. I think it's pretty good, just not as good as the original. Not much to say, 30 points. And 16th is Brain Scan. This plays in Anti-Citizen 1 when Alex is trying to open the gate to the street. This track honestly feels out of place with its beat and everything. It's still a great track, but like, I don't know, just given how the track sounds and everything, and it just playing at this moment, I don't know, it just sounds kind of off to me. So I'm just giving it 31 points, so it's still a good track. Coming in at 15th, we got Town 9, which is the final renamed track for Half-Life 2 in this ranking. This one being renamed from Drums and Riffs. It plays as you enter the crane during Highway 17, and since this track is unchanged, I'll save my compliments for later. Although I will say, I do like this crane scene. I wish we got to use a crane again at some point in the series. I like when it just let you use random weird world, like, objects in the world in Half-Life. It's just fun. And getting to kill the Combine with your crane, with your car, like the cargo containers on, is just really fun. So I'm giving it 31 points. And 14th is Credits Closing theme. This plays during the credits at the end of Half-Life, or the very short credits, because the majority of the song plays back on the title screen because, well, there's like 10 people who worked on the original Half-Life, so like, there's not much to credit, in all fairness to them. And honestly, this track doesn't really represent what the hell happens in the game, or what Half-Life means as a whole. Like, yeah, you just killed the big bad, you went for all bad, but like, there's no mention of the repercussions of what the hell probably happens after. We just got hired by some mysterious man who looks like that, and it's just like kind of happy upbeat, like dun, 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 you know, like kind of sound. I try replicating one parts of the song. You know what I'm doing? It's just feels a little bit out of place, but honestly, I like this track. So it gets 31 points. In 13th place, we have Abandoned in Place, and this track, I was confused on if it's actually an action track or not, but overall personal opinion, I too many in action, so I figured I'd put it in here. So it plays when the common breach in the White Forest base happens in chapter Our Mutual Fiend. There's not much else to say about this track. It's pretty good, I like it, so I'm giving it 32 points. In 12th is Combine Harvester. Yet again, another cut track from the game. It sounds a lot like Miscount Detective, but just a lot better this time. This does make sense in a way, though, as I can't really think of a moment that it would really work in-game, that it would fit, like, in-game wise. Maybe people can think of something, maybe it would have worked in the beta, but, like, not the retail release of the game. But it's still a, weirdly enough, iconic track, I'd say, at least from the game, even though it's not even in the game. And it's pretty good, so, you know what, I'll still be fair to it, so I'm just going to be giving it 33 points, my bad. 11th is Eon Trap. Once again, just like the Abandoned in Place, I was confused on wherever this track belonged, but I put it here for the same reason. It plays an under the radar when being trapped into another ambush by the Combine. I didn't really write much else during this part because I couldn't really think of anything else to say about this track, other than the fact that it's pretty good sounding. I actually do like a lot of the, the sounds and stuff used in this. I'm not a music guy, okay? I don't know why, if you came on this video expecting me to like go in depth with like musical details or something like that, then I'm sorry, but you clicked on the wrong video. I don't know anything about music. I played, there was a couple years in my school career where I played an instrument. That was it. I don't know if I said this before, so it gets 34 points. I probably forgot it again because I'm very stupid. 10th place is Dark Interval. This track plays at the end of episode 2 when Eli Vance is actually killed. And this scene is memorable just to anyone who plays this game, especially because it was the cliffhanger we were left on for like 13 years or something. So this track just really helps elevate the somber tone of this event. Yeah, there's not much else to say. It's a pretty sad scene. Yeah, there's nothing else to say. It's sad and it really helps to elevate the fact that it's sad, but I wouldn't say it's ambience, so 35 points. 9th place is Ravenholm Reprise. This place is you first enter Ravenholm after climbing up a long ladder to get there. At this point, what Ravenholm is/was is pretty vague, especially because the first time it's mentioned is when Alex just somberly says, "We don't go there anymore," and later on Eli kind of yells at you through intercom, "Don't go to Ravenholm," and then you immediately go to Ravenholm afterwards. Thank you, Alex. That was very smart of you to say, instead of just having Dog like break through the rocks or something like that. Thank you for your very helpful advice. But either way, I think it sounds really good, and just it serves as a very good introduction to the Ravenholm chapter. As I mean, the first thing that you see is the lower half of a dead carcass just hanging on a tree. So I feel like it's a pretty fitting track for the moment, especially because it's like the middle of the night. So overall, I'm going to be giving it 35 points, a very good introduction to an amazing chapter. In 8th place is a personal favorite of mine, Dark Energy. This track plays in Highway 17 shortly after you start to drive around, and later plays it in the end credits, this time being the first track that plays in the end credits. This track has actually served as my outro theme since the beginning of me editing, and there's only actually been a few videos where I've actually changed it, so honestly, there's a lot of personal bias here, but can you blame me? It's a good track. I like it. It's very upbeat. Doesn't really fit the tone of anything, especially in-game. But at the same time, I feel like you'd be feeling pretty upbeat if you just out of nowhere gotta drive a car. Yeah, 35 points. I don't know what to say. 7th place is another personal favorite of mine, Klaxon Beat. And I think this is a personal favorite of pretty much everyone who listens to this track. It plays when you equip the HEV suit in the original Half-Life, and the song is still somewhat fitting to the game considering how the Resonance Cascade hasn't actually happened yet, so the upbeat kind of funk-like track actually does make a lot of sense here. It is a shame that they didn't just reuse it for when you put on the HEV suit in Half-Life 2. I know it wouldn't make much sense, but like, come on, it's the HEV equipped sound effect, come on. They should have reused it. 36 points. I have to cough so badly, holy shit. In 6th place is Pulse Phase. This track first plays when you re-enter the town square and follow Freeman, and later playing in a personal favorite scene of mine, which is when you descend the elevator to confront Dr. Breen in Dark Energy. I love this moment so much, honestly. It just fills you with so much determination here as you just go down to fight him. Honestly, I just like it. I think it's a very fitting theme for, an elevator ride down to a boss fight. I love it a lot. 36 points, I think is pretty well justified. Starting off the top 5 is Crawlyard. It plays in Freeman Pontifex. I'm gonna let Google answer that one for me. When fighting some zombies in the sewage water. Now, you may have never actually heard of this track before, and it's for a good reason. And that's because Valve forgot about it as well. And the first thing I just have to say about it is just, how do you mess that up? Like, how do you just forget just forget an entire track in your soundtrack? Did no one replay the game for it when they were making it? Did they not go into the game files? Did someone like hide it in like a different games folder? I don't know what happened, but it's a bit of a shame because this track's actually really unique sounding and it's just really good. So it's honestly a bit of a shame that Valve themselves forgot about it, because I think it's an amazing track. And actually, wasn't even aware of it until I actually like replayed it, like Half-Life 2 Episode 2, and I kind of heard it. And while I was watching footage, and I heard a track there, I'm like, oh, I didn't hear that in the soundtrack, which is what I was pretty much using for reference for a lot of these, right? To write in the tracks. So I'm pretty sure it's the only mistake like that in any of the soundtracks, but it's really weird that they would just forget about a track like that. Yeah, no, 37 points I think is pretty well justified, especially in compensation for it being forgotten, literally. In fourth place is Military Precision. It places you first enter the residue processing facility in the chapter Residue Processing. Or should I say, supposed to, because for some reason this track doesn't play in-game when it's supposed to. But for some reason in Half-Life Source, it does actually still play here. So if anyone understands coding or something, please explain what the hell happened here, because I don't know why it plays in Half-Life Source, but it doesn't end up playing in the original Half-Life. Because I know it's supposed to play in the original Half-Life at this one point. And there's been so many patches and bug fixes to the original Half-Life, especially because of their 25th anniversary update. You'd think someone would catch this, but they haven't. So I mean, hey, if anyone who is in charge of, checking any of that stuff at Valve, please do fix that. Please make Military Precision still play there, because I do not have to play Half-Life Source to hear it in game, especially considering that residue processing in Half-Life Source is just a horrible chapter. I'm going to put footage on screen right now to show you why residue processing is abhorrent in Half-Life Source. But if you've ever played Half-Life Source or heard anything about it, I don't need to explain that to you. So let's just move on. It gets 37 points. I like the track, regardless. I know I didn't get enough time to explain that, but I like it. It's a good track. It sounds unique. It's good. In third place, we have Triage at Dawn. Easily just one of the most well-known tracks in the Half-Life series, possibly the most iconic even, especially the outside of the actual community. It plays at the end of We Don't Go to Ravenholm after a wave of combat soldiers are defeated and you reunite with the Resistance. And a lot of people actually, mainly because of the name and, Winston, the refugee who got shot, believe that the song has a somber tone to it because of, the somber scene that just happened. Like, oh my god, he just got shot. But in reality, or at least what's probably most likely the real reason for the tone of this song, is actually because of the fact that, Gordon just got reunited with the Resistance after being completely separated from them for an entire night and had to spend a night with a crazy, I don't know how to describe Father Gregory, crazy man pretty much, in massive zombie town. So, understandably, he'd be pretty, shocked about the whole event and traumatized. So it makes sense that he'd be feeling almost like a bit of not a relief, but almost like a sense of somberness of having to go through all that and being relieved now all of a sudden. It's a very fitting theme when you think of it like that. So honestly, I really enjoy this track. Of course, everyone enjoys this track, I'm pretty sure. I can't really think of a single person who doesn't like this track. So I would say that 39 points is quite well justified. In second place, we have the Valve theme itself. In Half-Life, this plays when exiting the pipe onto the cliffside in surface tension. And hearing this track just makes so much sense why they made it their theme. Yeah, it's good. It stands out, it's unique. It's just such a good track. And not to mention that the cliffside scene is extremely iconic in of itself. And it's just only, expulsated, if that's a word, expanded, I don't know, with this track. And also, I just love it. And the cliffside scene is just such a fun fight, and I love it a lot. I'd say 39 points is pretty good. Maybe a bit high, maybe a bit positive, but... And our last track for today, coming in first for story tracks, is Drums and Riffs. This track plays at the end of On a Rail, phasing in as the rocket you just launched goes off into orbit, and as the name implies, it's just drums and riffs throughout. I absolutely love this track so much, and honestly, just the scene is so amazing. Like, there's no fighting. It's just a moment of peace. I mean, there is, okay, the bombs that you do have to avoid when exiting the building, but other than that, it's just, I like to take a moment just to look at it, because it's one of the few moments of, like, actual peace and actual, like, quiet. Or not quiet, but, like, actual calmness in, like, the whole series, really. You don't get a lot of moments like that. So, it's just a really nice moment, and it feels like you actually achieved something for once. So I feel like everything else is just left so ambiguous. So to get, like, an actual definitive, like, almost answer in a way to what you just did, as you watch the rocket literally go off because you launched it, it's just so beautiful, and I love it. And like I mentioned earlier, I love On a Rail. Beautiful chapter. I don't care if you disagree with me. That's my opinion. We're all entitled to our own opinions. If you think On a Rail is the worst chapter, that's fine. So honestly, overall, I'm going to give this track 39 points. Well, there it is. The rankings by category and reason they are where they are. But I'm not done ranking them entirely, because I know someone will say something or maybe commented in the comments. So here's every single track ranked in order, and I'm going to quickly go through all of these. And by the way, I'm not going to be separating them by categories here. I'm going to be reading them and ranking them into, like, every single one in order, and there's like 90 or so of them. So this is going to dry my throat up exponentially, especially because I'm going to try and read it off fast. So, you guys ready? Alright, here we go. Scared, Confused, Short, Biozemonod Fragment, Negative Pressure, Suppression Field, Broken Symmetry, Singularity, Traveling Through Limbo, Black Mesa Inbound, Dimensionless Deepness, Combine Advisory, Kaleba Yao Model, Echoes of Resonance Cascade, Zen Relay, Escape Array, Dirac Shore, Hurricane Strings, Headhumper, Probably Not a Problem, Eincliner, Elevator Music, Decay Mode, Apprehensive, Nuclear Mission Jam, Are Resurrected, Teleport, Zero Point Energy Field, Neutrino Trap, Caffeine Ambience, Shu'ula Void, Triple Entanglement, Hard Fought, Shadows Fore and Aft, Steam into Pipe, Spatial Ocean, Hazardous Environments, Electric Guitar Ambience, Fast Ring, Miscount Detected, Lambda Core, Extinction Event Horizon, No One Writes for Free, Tracking Device, Branding Short, Brain Scan, Town 9, Darkness at Noon, Dainsbrook Experiment, Credits Closing Theme, Adrenaline Horror, Sector Suite, Vague Voices, Guard Down, Jungle Drums, Lab Practicum, Disrupted Original, CP Violation, Abandoned in Place, Hunting Party, Info Rating, Penultimate, Self-Destruction, Combine Harvester, Inhuman Frequency, Particle Ghost, Hard Technology, Rock, Dark, Piano Short, Eon Trap, Alien Shock, Nectarium, Something Secret Stirs Us, Dark Interval, Away from Home, Reprise, Hunter Down, Sharp Fear Short, Dark Energy, Diabolical Adrenaline Guitar, Silence in the Distance, Klaxon D, Reckon for Ravenholm, Nova Prospect, Pulse Phase, Kaon, Call Yard, Military Precision, Apprehension and Evasion, Slow Light, What Kind of Hospital Is This, Nepal Monastery, LG Oracle, Last Legs, Triage Dawn, Battlefield, You're Not Supposed to Be Here, Drums Rift, and Mortal Kombat. There we go. I don't know how long that took, but oh, that was tiring. That was a lot, and that was a total of 93 tracks, I believe. So, but now with all of those rankings done and all of it done, I'll just clarify a few more things before I finish off the video. So let's just go over some tracks that I left out and why. And I put tracks in quotations here because, for example, Distorted Trumpets is just, because I know someone's gonna mention it, it's just not really a track. If I do ever make a follow-up to this video, I will include Distorted Trumpets in it, but I don't really count it, and it's just in a really, you know, minor scene, like a little Easter egg anyways, and it would get a really low score, probably the lowest actually, because it doesn't sound good, it's not meant to. So I just kind of left it out for that reason. And I know there was probably a couple other tracks that like were technically like cut tracks that were supposed to be in the game, but I couldn't really find out anything technically official for sure. So I just made the critical decision to just leave them out. I also just want to say, I'm sorry for taking so long to make this video. I know I said this at the beginning, but just so many things came up. Like, I got sick, and, well, I was lazy first, then I got sick, and then I realized I didn't focus on academics, so a lot of things came up. So I'm sorry to take, this video is meant to come out like 3 weeks ago or something like that, but I care a lot more about quality over quantity, honestly, so I personally don't mind, and I hope none of you guys mind as well. I don't think I should be someone that you guys should expect me uploading constantly. Just someone that, yeah, check in every once in a while to watch like a somewhat long video, you know what I mean? And I just want to give a massive thanks again for the support from the last video. Like, when I posted that, I had like 33 subscribers, I'm pretty sure, and I didn't think the video would get more than 200 views. Like, I mean, none of my videos ever did that well. I knew it was a different category of video, and I knew those videos tended to do better, but I didn't think anything special of it, right? In the first couple days, it was looking out that views. It was just a slightly above average. And then I ended up getting like 500 views, and I was like, oh wow, this video did well. And then it went to 1,000. I'm like, oh my god, wow, this video is actually somewhat successful. And my subscribers went up like a bit. And then, you know, a few days go by, I read comments, a lot of positive ones actually, which is really shocking to me. I do appreciate everyone who gave suggestions or advice for all those. I have taken a lot of those into account. I'm glad people actually, for the most part, kept it pretty constructive. But, and then like a week passed, and well, here we are. I'm sitting at like 163 subs and like 10k like views on that video, and it's like, wow, I never expected to go that far. All my friends told me that I'm just wasting my time with this channel, but hey, I'm proving I'm wrong. And honestly, if you wanted me to help prove I'm wrong, I hate to ask for, you know, you to like the video and subscribe, but I mean, like, I think we all would like to prove our friends wrong at some point. So I mean, just saying, you don't have to, remember, but it is completely free to subscribe. You can unsubscribe at any time. So I'm just saying, and I know it tends to not, and I know saying this at the end of the video is only gonna apply to people, like only people who actually watch the whole video are gonna hear this, which means they probably are subscribed. But if you're not, please do. I would really appreciate it if you did. But I think that's pretty much everything there is really to say. I can't think of anything else, and I didn't write anything else. So with that being all said, thank you for watching. That's all for today. So thank you for watching. I wrote that twice in the script. How do I close this video? See y'all next time.